Welcome. A week ago, I created a video that ran for more than an hour. It addressed the important skills that are required of all college students. Now, I'd like to take sections from that longer video and present them as multiple shorter videos so that they're easier to digest. If you've already watched my college skills complete video, there's no need to watch the videos that are in this series. It's a repetition of material. But if you haven't watched that longer video yet, I encourage you to watch this video and the others in the series because the topics that I address really are important to all college students. In this video, I would like to address the general skills that are expected of all college students. If you're in high school or if you've recently been graduated from high school and are progressing to your first semester of college life, you may find the information in this video to be a bit novel and maybe unexpected. If you've been in college for a year or more, I encourage you to also watch this video through to the end because there's a really good chance that I will address topics that either you haven't yet noted or skills that you haven't yet developed, but that you recognize would be valuable to your work in college. During much of this video, I will support my oral comments with a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation. It's common in college for instructors to use some form of digital video presentation medium. PowerPoint is the most common that I've observed when I've visited my colleagues' classes. It can be overdone, but I hope that in this video you focus on my oral comments and recognize that I'm using the PowerPoint slides as an adjunct to my comments, sometimes to remind me what to say, other times just to reinforce what I'm saying. I think the most important skill is self-management, but within self-management, there are specific micro skills that arise. In fact, I have three PowerPoint slides related to just self-management. The first, get sufficient sleep. If you're a person who needs 8 hours of solid sleep a night, get to bed in sufficient time to allow you to have 8 hours of sleep and still prepare yourself for the next day. Some people require more than 8 hours of sleep. I know when I was a residential college student, I needed 9 or 10 hours of sleep because I was so busy during the day that I was really worn out. And I needed that extra time to build up the physical energy to be able to face the next day. Some people will require fewer than 8 hours of sleep. Know your own body, but as a general rule of thumb, you probably need more sleep than you think you do. Arise for class with sufficient time to prepare yourself for the day ahead. Take into account the time that you need to get physically prepared in the morning and the time that is required for you to travel from your residence to the classroom. Now, if you're a on-campus residential student, there's a good chance you'll walk to class. Take into account how busy the sidewalks will be. Literally, what are the traffic backups, even though everyone's on foot? If you're a commuter student, take into account the vehicular traffic patterns so that you know, on average, how long it takes to get to class. And then plan for the longest travel time. I don't know that it's a good idea to just plan on the average travel time. The attire that you wear while in class should demonstrate your commitment to your academic work. One of the dress behaviors that I have observed, particularly among freshmen, is the wearing of pajamas or slippers to class. Dress for school in a manner that demonstrates your commitment to your responsibilities. If it's pajama day on campus, then it's fine to wear pajamas. Other than that, pajamas really have no place outside of the residence. And you might even want to go so far as to dress in a manner that would be appropriate during your post-college employment. So you're literally dressing for your own success. On the second slide of self-management, there's always more to learn. I had originally titled this bullet item as college work will take more than 24 hours a day. And that's not a true statement. There's only 24 hours in each day. But academic work is a little bit of a rabbit hole. The more you look for information, the more information you find. The more you know, the more information you desire to know. So, particularly in regard to research, academic activities can take significantly longer than you have originally planned for. So leave flexibility within your personal schedule so that you've got the freedom to fully complete your academic responsibilities and you don't feel rushed to get an assignment done. Get started immediately whenever an assignment is given to you. Even when the professor says, I'm assigning a 5-page research paper, it's due in 3 weeks. That afternoon, that evening, you should be started with listing potential topics for your research paper, listing your biases, your opinions, your current thoughts about the paper. By the next day, you should be starting your research for the project. Typically, for an undergraduate 5-page research paper, I would expect students to put forth somewhere between 5 and 20 hours of research in the library before they even attempt to write the first sentence in the paper. So some projects at college will take you much longer than a similar project would have taken you in high school, because you will have access to much more data, and you have to sift through that data and filter the wheat from the chaff. Prioritize your assignments and the individual components of each assignment. If you have an assignment due in 2 days and another assignment due in 2 weeks, it makes sense to do the 2-day assignment first. Get that done, out of the way, and then begin the assignment that has some greater slack in its schedule or has more flexibility regarding when you complete the assignment. And do important tasks first. There are tasks that are fun and enjoyable, and there are tasks that are important. Sometimes they're enjoyable, sometimes they're not. Do the important tasks first. Defer the enjoyment until after having completed the most important tasks. In regard to assertiveness, speak up in class. I can't recall ever having met a student who earned an A in any of my classes that didn't also speak frequently in class. Now, I've also had students who speak frequently in class and don't do academically well, but the common characteristic of all students who do well is that they participate in class. They let the teacher know what they themselves know. Or let me say that more clearly. Students who earn high grades let the professor know that they know the relevant required material. They show an understanding of the information contained in the assigned readings, which, by the way, never go to class without having done the readings. And because later I'm going to advise you to always go to class, we can assume that you must always do the assigned readings, no matter how boring they are. But in regard to assertiveness, speak up in class. Share the knowledge that you gained from preparing for the class. Ask for clarification when you don't understand a course requirement. For example, if I were to assign a 5-page paper due in 2 weeks to a class of students, I kind of reasonably expect someone in the room to ask me, what do I mean by page? Do I count the title page? Do I count the reference page? What if a page were 3/4 full? Does that count as a full page? Make sure you understand what the requirements are, because often these little details are not written in the assignment prompt or in the syllabus. So you have to ask these clarifying questions. Still on the topic of self-management, this is my last slide. Take responsibility for your own success. Arrive to the classroom, be seated, have your note-taking material arranged on your desk prior to the start of class so that the professor can begin class at the scheduled time and assume that everyone in the room is ready to attend to the comments being made. I suggest arriving to the classroom a few minutes early so you have time to get ready, and you must stay for the duration of the class. Wait for the professor to release you. Unlike in high school, where there are often bells or chimes that indicate the end of class periods, at university, it's the instructor who releases the students. Sometimes, frequently, I release students a few minutes before the scheduled time because I have taught my students these skills early in the semester. We start our class on time, we move quickly through the material, and then I can wrap up a few minutes early, giving the students and me a bit of a breather between class. But some faculty will hold students late. Stay. Unless you have a life-threatening situation coming up during the next class period, don't leave class until the instructor has released you. Because it's often, when a professor is running late, running long during the class session, there will be very important information presented in the last couple minutes. So you don't want to miss the really important information. When it comes to submitting assignment responses, always be on time. There really are very few exceptions to submitting an assignment late. It's rare for an instructor to not give at least a week to prepare an assignment response. During that week, you should be able to find sufficient time to complete the assignment. If you have a travel scheduled, or if you have a medical appointment scheduled that will prevent you from doing your academic work for a day or two, talk with your professor and see if you can make private arrangements, maybe a 1 or a 2 day extension on the due date. But those exceptions are few and far between. In general, there are very few times that students can reasonably submit assignments late. When it comes to tests and examinations, arrive at the testing center with sufficient time to begin at the beginning of the testing period, and make sure your submission is recorded before the end of the testing period. Before this past semester, I would never have thought that I would have to tell students that. But this past semester, in 3 different classes, I had at least 2 students fail to submit the final exam. Now, rather than requiring my students to come to the classroom and take the examination in person, I allowed them a week in which to complete the examination at their residence and upload it through our learning management system. And yet I still had 6 students who failed to submit the final exam on time, and all of them were pretty angry when they saw that they had earned a grade of 0 because the university prevents me from accepting final examinations late. Even though, rather than giving the students a 2-hour exam period in person, I gave them a full week. And I think in one of those classes, I gave 2 weeks during which the exam could be submitted. I really didn't know what to say to those students, but it does occur. Obviously, it happened to me. So I'm cautioning you, know when your tests and exams are due, and make sure you complete them on time. And develop the discipline and the grit to stick to it when the going gets tough. Every college student that I have ever met, and I remember when I was a student, so this was true for me also. Every day at some point we feel discouraged and or overwhelmed. It's okay. It's a normal reaction to the high expectations that are put on college students. Stick to your work. If you need to take a break, take a break, and then get right back to your work. Don't allow your social life to negatively affect your academic performance. There's a time for friends, and there's a time for academic work. Do your academic work first, and then enjoy the company of your friends. And by the way, the same thing holds true for students who are athletes on an organized sports team. You are a college student first. You're a college student who also is an athlete. So I have heard used the term student athlete many times. You are not student athletes. That means you're an athlete first who's also a student. You are athletic students. And sometimes you have to let your team down to meet your academic responsibilities. I, for one, do not advocate for either encouraging and definitely not facilitating students participating in athletic activities to the detriment of their academic responsibilities. And I would think the majority of my colleagues would agree with me, including those that serve as academic advisors to athletes. I hope you found this portion of the video interesting. I will continue this discussion of general skills required of all college students in the next part of this video series.